The serial killer next door. Imagine living in a small Norwegian town, a place where people rarely lock their doors, where neighbors know each other by name, where violent crime is almost unheard of. Now imagine that, within a single year, 4 people are brutally murdered. Not in a large city, not by a criminal gang, but in a quiet neighborhood where everyone feels safe. For months, police have no suspect, no witnesses, no explanation. As fear spreads through the community, residents begin asking the same terrifying question: who among us is capable of this? The answer would shock the entire country. Because the killer was not a stranger, he lived among them, he greeted his neighbors, he had a family, and for years, nobody suspected him. This is the story of the Tistedal murders, one of the most disturbing criminal cases in Norwegian history. Chapter 1. A quiet community. Tistedal is a small community near the town of Halden in southeastern Norway. In the early 1990s, it was the kind of place where major crimes rarely happened. Life was predictable. Children played outside, neighbors chatted over fences, people trusted one another. Few could imagine that their town would soon become the center of one of Norway's largest murder investigations. That sense of security was about to disappear forever. Chapter 2. The First Murders. On September 3, 1991, residents awoke to shocking news. Inside their home, elderly siblings Ace Helene Nordby and Arna Oddvar Nordby had been brutally murdered. The crime scene was horrific. Both victims had suffered multiple stab wounds. The violence stunned investigators. This was not a spontaneous act. Whoever committed the murders had shown extraordinary brutality. Police immediately launched a large-scale investigation. Detectives interviewed neighbors. They searched for witnesses. They examined every possible lead. But there was a problem. There were almost no clues, no eyewitnesses, no clear suspect. Just silence. Days before the murders, the siblings had reportedly encountered a stranger near their property. The man claimed he was looking for a dog. At the time, it seemed insignificant. But investigators would later wonder whether that encounter had been far more important than anyone realized. Chapter 3. A community in fear. Weeks turned into months. The murders remained unsolved. Residents became increasingly nervous. People began locking doors. Some avoided going out alone after dark. Rumors spread throughout the community. Every unfamiliar face attracted attention. Every strange noise became a cause for concern. But despite the growing fear, nobody knew the truth. The killer was still living among them, watching, waiting, and planning. Chapter 4. The Second Victim. Almost exactly 1 year later, tragedy struck again. A 71-year-old pensioner named Per Ruud suddenly disappeared. At first, friends and family hoped there might be an innocent explanation. But as days passed, concern grew. His car was later found abandoned. Something was clearly wrong. Police searched extensively, yet no body could be found. The case became another mystery. Then came the grim discovery. Months later, neighbors found Per Ruud's body concealed on his own property. The missing person case instantly became a murder investigation. He had been violently killed. Now investigators faced an unsettling possibility. Could the same person be responsible for both crimes? Chapter 5. Christmas Horror. The worst was yet to come. December 23, 1992. Just one day before Christmas Eve. Local store manager Carl Johan Hagevik was driving home. He never made it. He was found dead inside his vehicle, shot in the back of the head, execution style. The murder shocked the entire nation. By now, several people had been killed within a very small geographic area. The similarities were impossible to ignore. Police began seriously considering the possibility that a serial killer was operating in Tistedal. The peaceful community transformed overnight. When darkness fell, streets became empty. Curtains closed earlier. People stayed indoors. Fear had taken control. Chapter 6. The largest investigation. The investigation expanded dramatically. Local detectives were joined by specialists from Kripos. Thousands of hours were spent reviewing evidence. Witnesses were interviewed repeatedly. Tips poured in from across the country. Police examined every possibility. Could the killer be a drifter? A local criminal? Someone with a personal connection to the victims? Investigators chased countless leads. Most ended nowhere. Months passed. Still no arrest. Still no answers. Yet behind the scenes, a name kept appearing. Roger Herbert Haglund. Chapter 7. The man nobody suspected. At first glance, Haglund seemed ordinary. He was a family man, a neighbor, a familiar face in the community. Not the sort of person people imagined when they thought of a serial killer. But detectives began noticing something unusual. His name surfaced repeatedly during the investigation. Residents mentioned him. Certain tips pointed in his direction. Nothing concrete. Nothing enough for an arrest. But enough to keep investigators interested. Then they discovered something else. Haglund was experiencing serious financial difficulties. That caught police attention. Because many aspects of the murders suggested robbery as a motive. For the first time, detectives had a possible explanation. A reason why someone might target vulnerable victims. Still, suspicion alone was not enough. They needed proof. Chapter 8. The bank robbery connection. Then investigators made a breakthrough. They began connecting the murders to another serious crime. A bank robbery. Months earlier, an armed robber had attacked a local bank branch. The crime remained unsolved, but detectives noticed similarities. The robbery and the murders all occurred within the same region. All appeared motivated by money. All pointed towards someone growing increasingly desperate. Police revisited the robbery. Witness statements were reviewed. Recordings were analyzed. And gradually, attention focused more intensely on Haglund. The separate pieces of the puzzle were beginning to fit together. Chapter 9. The walls close. Investigators now concentrated on Haglund. His movements were examined. His statements were reviewed. His alibis were tested. Problems began to emerge. Some explanations could not be verified. Certain details changed over time. Detectives became increasingly convinced that he was hiding something. Then, physical evidence began supporting their suspicions. Items connected to the victims were traced to locations associated with Haglund. The evidence was no longer based solely on suspicion. For the first time, investigators could see a path toward proving their case. The walls were closing in. Chapter 10. The arrest. On May 1st, 1993, police made their move. Roger Herbert Haglund was arrested. The moment represented the culmination of months of relentless investigation. During questioning, detectives confronted him with the evidence, the financial motive, the inconsistencies, the robbery connection, the physical evidence, the witness information. The pressure mounted. Then something unexpected happened. Haglund confessed. The community finally had an answer, but the story was far from over. Chapter 11. Confession and Denial. After confessing, Haglund later changed his story. He attempted to withdraw parts of his confession. New explanations emerged. Claims were made, excuses were offered. Investigators remained unconvinced. The evidence continued to point in the same direction. As prosecutors prepared their case, the picture became increasingly clear. This was not a random series of crimes. It was a calculated pattern of violence committed over an extended period. Chapter 12. The Trial. When the trial began, public interest was enormous. Journalists filled the courtroom. Residents followed every development. The nation wanted answers. Prosecutors presented a chilling portrait. A man who appeared ordinary on the surface, but who was capable of extraordinary violence. Victims had been targeted, attacked, and robbed. The evidence was overwhelming. Eventually, Haglund admitted responsibility once again. The court found him guilty. He was sentenced to Norway's maximum prison sentence at the time, 21 years imprisonment, along with additional preventive detention measures. The investigation that had consumed years was finally over. Epilogue. The Tistedal murders left permanent scars. 4 innocent people lost their lives. Families were shattered. An entire community was traumatized. Even today, decades later, the case remains one of Norway's most infamous murder investigations. But perhaps the most frightening lesson is this: the killer was not a mysterious stranger from far away. He was not a shadowy criminal hiding in the wilderness. He lived among his victims. He walked the same streets, shopped in the same stores, spoke with the same neighbors. And for years, nobody knew. Because sometimes evil does not look frightening. Sometimes it looks completely ordinary. And that is exactly what made the Tistedal murders so terrifying.